great moments come alive on NBC Sports. With a blend of tradition and the latest in television technology, we're building tomorrow's memories today, right here on NBC.
The day begins with baseball on NBC, and today the leading hitter in the American League, Wade Boggs, takes the Boston Red Sox into New York to battle the Yankees, who are hot and gearing up to make a run in the East. Or George Brett and the Kansas City Royals chasing California in the West, going to Exhibition Stadium to take on Toronto, leading the East by 6 games. Then after baseball, it's the third round of the World Championship of Women's Golf. But up first, NBC Sports presents Major League Baseball, an inside look at baseball and a preview of today's game of the week. Brought to you by Goodyear, makers of the great performing all-season radial Vector, and by Krylon Spray Paint for that smooth, fast, professional finish.
And hello, everyone. I'm Bill McAtee in our NBC Sports studios in New York. And as we get set for baseball, over the next few minutes, we will take you down to the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary to hear from former Cy Young Award winner Denny McLain, who is now serving a 23-year prison term. And then on a lighter note, how friends and teammates deal with each other as they compete for individual titles. Those and a few surprises. But first of all, we want to update you on games last night. We start in the National League East because there the St. Louis Cardinals won for the 5th straight time, beating Montreal, and that gives the Cardinals the lead in the East.
The Pirate highlight film may be short this year, but here's one play that'll be on it. Marvell Wynn dives to rob Rafael Santana of a hit in the 2nd. In the 5th, Bill Madlock connects off Ed Lynch for a 2-run home run. And the Pirates, playing the part of spoiler, beat the Mets 7-1. In Toronto, the Royals stayed close to California in the West. This base hit by Steve Balboni put Kansas City off to a fast start against the Blue Jays. 3 runs in the 1st inning, and the Royals win it by a score of 4-2. In New York, the Yankees went to extra innings against Boston. And in the game, there was a marvelous defensive play by Ricky Henderson climbing the wall to rob Bill Buckner of a home run. And the conclusion of the game was just as unlikely. Bob Stanley on a controversial pitch called inside by umpire Drew Coble, walking Willie Randolph with the bases loaded, bringing home Dave Winfield with a winning run as Stanley and the rest of the Red Sox argued the irreversible call.
That victory means the Yankees pick up a game on the Blue Jays. They now trail by 6. The Yankees last night also released outfielder Omar Moreno. Moreno struggling this year, hitting .197. And there was a retirement of note. Larry Bowa, the man who after 12 years logged more games at shortstop than anyone in history.
Bowa's retirement press conference on Tuesday became an emotional moment.
This fight will be tougher than hitting Nolan Ryan or Tom Seaver.
While the California Angels remain on top in the West, Monday night, Reggie Jackson hit a towering home run against the Mariners. Number 521 for Reggie, tying him for 8th place on the all-time list with Ted Williams and Willie McCovey. And while the Cleveland Indians struggle, one Indian, Pat Tabler, has been uncanny with the bases loaded. This single Monday night against the Orioles made Tabler 6 for 6 in bases-loaded situations this year, 21 for 33 over the last 3 years. And with the Dodgers threatening to run away in the National League West, this week Bob Welch pitched a shutout against the Braves as the Dodgers staff completed a string of 52 consecutive scoreless innings. While former Dodger Steve Howe is getting another chance in Minnesota in his debut with the Twins. Howe got the victory, retiring the first 11 hitters he faced.
Well, the major thing that I'm going to try to accomplish is just fit in with a bunch of ball players and be a contributor to a winning situation.
And there was sadness in baseball with the death of Pete Sheehy, the man who had run the Yankee clubhouse since the days of Babe Ruth.
Well, everybody was for everybody in those days. But no, they didn't make much money, but they were hungry.
Pete Sheehy's funeral was attended by the likes of Joe DiMaggio and Yogi Berra. Ron Guidry said in giving the eulogy, "We are all blessed that he was a part of our lives." All right, Bill McAtee back now in New York. On this date 17 years ago, Denny McLain was on top of the baseball world. His record was 25-3 en route to a 30-win season, the last 30-game season in the major leagues. Since that time, McLain's life has fallen apart. His days are now spent in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, serving a 23-year sentence for drug possession, racketeering, and extortion. McLean maintains his innocence while working on an appeal, but the fact remains that this once great star has been convicted. How should people perceive you? Should we feel sorry for you because you're in here, or should we feel angry because you had an ability that a lot of us can just dream about and you blew it?
I don't know. People have, wherever I've gone, hey, listen, Bill Smith said he did this with you. I never even heard of Bill Smith. I mean, there's been a million Bill Smith stories. I am not out front and exposed as much as people would think that I've always been. I have certainly, more than adequately detailed at the trial, been around some people I shouldn't have been. But I'm not sure how the public's perception is. I think that there's an awful lot of people disappointed, and hopefully, God willing, that we will be able to turn that disappointment around very soon.
McLean says he enjoys watching Dwight Gooden, who, along with Joaquin Andujar, McLean believes could someday join him with 30 victories in a season.
Both got unlimited ability. They both play with good ball clubs. Unfortunately, I don't think either one of them play with the kind of ball club that scores the runs that Detroit was capable of scoring when I pitched. But they both got great arms. Gooden looks like he's going to be around for 40 years. I hope to God he stays healthy.
Talking to McLean creates mixed feelings. You want to feel sorry for him, and you know you probably shouldn't. The rest of that interview, by the way, will be seen Monday morning on the Today Show. Now, some of you later today will see the Toronto Blue Jays against the Kansas City Royals. In what is considered baseball's toughest division, the Blue Jays seem to have a firm hold. Here's Lynn Berman.
Has baseball gone to the birds? The Orioles have the best record in baseball over the past 25 years. On the base paths, nobody's flying higher than the Cardinals this year. Individual star birds, you've got the goose and the penguin. And now meet the new birds on the block, the Toronto Blue Jays. And they make these birds tough.
As a club, do you think it's a pretty aggressive club?
Oh, yeah. We got, we got a couple guys, can steal. We got a power, and we got good bullpen. We got good stunt pitching, and I think everybody can go in this ball club.
Catcher Buck Martinez's cast may very well be the symbol of this club's aggressiveness. He broke his foot on one of the most remarkable plays of the year.
In time, the collision. Bradley bowls Martinez over. Thomas will wind up on the third base. Rounding third. The throw gets by Orange. Throw to the plate, and it is in time to get Gorman.
I have been away from the club for a month, and coming back, I see the same confidence that they had when I left. They have a tremendous, quiet confidence about them. They know that it's going to be a tough road to hoe down in the stretch run, but we have a quality ball club.
And that's where a veteran like Al Oliver can come in. He's been through the wars, and he can help these young Blue Jays.
I've been around the course now for 17 years, and I think the most important thing is I still can lead by example. I'm 38. I haven't slowed up. My bat is still quick, and I think that's the best way for any player is to lead, is by example.
You've been on pennant winners. Is this a pennant winner?
No question in my mind. This team kind of reminds me of the 71 and 72 Pirates.
Toronto was cruising along in first place in the division many people thought would be the toughest in baseball this year. They get down here to the heat of Texas, and suddenly there's another team coming up in the rearview mirror.
Suddenly, the Yankees were bird hunting. Before their winning streak was snapped, they had pulled to within 5 games of Toronto in the loss column.
We can understand how fast you can gain on people and how fast the league can dissipate. And there's still some clubs besides the Yankees out there that could win it.
Well, I think any Major League ball clubs that's right in the thick of the pennant race is going to be in the same shape as ours. If Rigetti doesn't do the job, they're going to falter. And if our bullpen doesn't do the job, we're going to falter.
It was thought before the season that the acquisitions of Bill Caudle and Gary Lavelle would make the Blue Jay bullpen unbeatable. It hasn't worked out that way.
Actually, they've done pretty darn good this season. Good, I think. But some other of the guys that were in our ball club last year, Dennis Lamp and Jim Acker, have done a terrific job also. And we call a kid up from Syracuse by the name of Tom Henke, who has actually been absolutely perfect.
I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering who I am and stuff, but hopefully I can keep doing the job, and in the future, they'll know who I am.
Are you the Terminator, or are you not the Terminator? That's what they call Reardon at Montreal.
Yeah.
But you always had the nickname in the minors, too?
Yeah, I had the nickname the Terminator in Syracuse, and it's kind of carrying over up even in Toronto a little bit, so
There may be 2 Terminators in the big leagues.
You like that nickname?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good nickname.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it strikes a little fear in the opposing hitters, I think.
And so it's been quite a flight for this young franchise. They hope it doesn't end until they become the 3rd team of Birds in the past 4 years to win it all. Len Berman tracking the Blue Jays in Texas.
All right, thank you, Lenny. When we come back, the best hitters in the American League are also best friends. We'll return to New York in a few moments. All right, we're a few minutes away from game time. You know, this is the time of year when it becomes fun to watch the races for individual titles. For instance, Willie McGee leads the National League in hitting and will probably win it. The race in the American League is interesting because it involves 2 friends, Wade Boggs of Boston and George Brett of Kansas City.
In 1984, Yankees Don Mattingly and Dave Winfield battled to the final at-bat for the American League batting title. It had been a 2-man race from July on, with Mattingly sneaking home by a nose. 1985 finds Mattingly again in the chase and again trailing a teammate. This time it's Rickey Henderson. But both Yankees are behind a pair of former batting champs and friends, Wade Boggs and George Brett.
You know, if one or the other of us win, it's there's no hard feelings between the other one that doesn't. And what are you talking about?
When Boston and Kansas City met this week, Brett went into the series leading the race by 1 point. In the 3-game series, the batting lead changed hands 3 times. Boggs emerged the leader.
We've just got to battle each other out and play golf in the wintertime and talk about it.
Before we put the pregame show to rest for this, the 19th Saturday of baseball this year, we want to show you what can best be described as a bizarre music video. The genesis of this is the give and take between Braves pitcher Terry Forster and David Letterman about Forster's weight.
Chocolate cones, chocolate cones, chocolate cones. We got a brand new time when that is fun, where being overweight is a real good sign. Eat what you want, don't exercise, cause nothing turns me on like cellulite thighs. That is in, stuff your face and don't be thin. Double chins are tall, all fun. On the beach you block the sun.
As a side note, we here at NBC Sports don't like the word fat. We realize that a heavy person's weight may be caused by factors other than eating, and one should not be ridiculed because of their size. Stay with us. Baseball is coming up next. Is that okay, guys? Hope so.
The standings in the American League West. California beat Oakland last night. Kansas City won in Toronto. The Royals remain 2.5 back. They have 7 left on the schedule with the Angels. Meanwhile, in the East, Toronto's lead has been sliced to 6 over the Yankees. The Blue Jays lost at home last night. The Yankees beat the Red Sox in extra innings. The Yankees have 7 left with Toronto, including the last 3 of the regular season at Exhibition Stadium. Coming up next on NBC, a possible playoff preview, the Royals and the Jays.
NBC Sports presents the Major League Baseball Game of the Week. Today from Exhibition Stadium, it's the Kansas City Royals versus the Toronto Blue Jays. The Game of the Week is brought to you by Ford, who invites you to drive the new Ford Escort. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Miller Beer. Miller, made the American way since 1855. By Citibank. And by Mr. Goodwrench and General Motors Parts.
A big week in Toronto, the Canadian National Exhibition, and another big crowd to watch the Blue Jays host the Royals. Doyle Alexander, 12-6, will be Bobby Cox's choice for Toronto. Dick Howser will go with the young left-hander Danny Jackson, who is 10-7 for Kansas City. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. Let's talk about the pitchers, starting with Doyle Alexander.
Doyle Alexander had some trouble early in the season throwing a lot of home run pitches. He's thrown 24 up. His last 7 outings have been outstanding. He may have as good a changeup as there is in the game, and I include people like Soto and Jeff Zahn. A control-type pitcher who can sneak fastballs by you.
And here's a guy who has come back from the scrap heap. He was 1-15 prior to late August of 1983, 36-12 since then.
Well, Bobby Cox had him down in Atlanta. He knew that if his arm was sound, that, well, he would get him, and he did, off the Yankee roster. I bet you George Steinbrenner and Billy Martin like to have him back.
Now, Danny Jackson is 10-7 for Kansas City. He's pitched 3 shutouts. When he's on, he can be very tough.
A power pitcher, and it's kind of a catch-22 in this ballpark. It's the smallest park in the big leagues. The ball flat. If you're on a day baseball, the turf gets very lively, so Danny Jackson had better keep the ball down.
Last night here in Toronto, Charlie Leibrandt defeated Jimmy Key of the Jays. 4-2 was the final score. Kansas City has now beaten Toronto 6 times in 10 tries.
Kansas City is coming. They are scoring a lot more runs since the All-Star break. They're averaging over 5 runs a game. They've got George Brett, of course, but I think a big man in this lineup to complement George Brett. Hal McRae hitting in the cleanup spots. That is starting to get in gear.
Yeah, since they made him the regular DH, McRae has hit about .330 over the last month. Back to check the lineups in just a minute. Dick Howser's lineup: Willie Wilson, who missed last night's game with a sore knee, is back in there and leading off. Lonnie Smith, who had 3 hits last night, plays left field and bats second. George Brett, a point behind Wade Boggs, 356 to Boggs' 357, the third baseman and number 3 hitter. Hal McRae, the DH and cleanup man. Dane Ord on the field today with his brother Garth playing third base for the Blue Jays, will be in right field. Frank White with 17 home runs, matching his career high, the second baseman. Steve Balboni will be at first base. John Wathan will catch. Sundberg out of their day game following a night game. Onyx Concepcion is the shortstop.
Here's what the defense looks like behind Doyle Alexander. A very, very quick artificial surface. It is very bouncy. George Bell, Lloyd Mosby, Jesse Barfield, 3 outfielders. You can go get the ball, cut down the gaps, have excellent throwing arms. Garth Orge at third base. Tony Fernandez out of San Pedro de Macorís, Dominican Republic, along with his fellow countrymen, same city. Manny Lee. Damaso Garcia having some lower back, but especially knee problems. Had to leave the ball game yesterday, missed the entire Texas series. The first baseman, a big right-handed hitter, being platooned at times now with Willie Upshaw. Cecil Fielder, he came out of the Kansas City Royals organization. Ernie Wedd, who hasn't started many ball games against left-handed pitchers this year, will today. And Doyle Alexander on the mound.
Alexander, as you mentioned, Tony, won 14 games for Bobby Cox in Atlanta in 1980. And despite the fact that Alexander was pitching horribly for the Yankees a few years ago, when he became available, Bobby Cox took a chance on him. The record you see on the screen, for whatever reason, is incorrect. Alexander is 12-6 this year, and his ERA is 3.92. So erase what you just saw. 12-6, 3.92. Last year, he was 17-6. He won his last 7 decisions in 1983. That's when he came alive and really paid dividends on the gamble the Blue Jays took on him.
He struggled early on this year with a lot of bases on balls, getting behind hitters, which is unusual for Alexander. And then I won't say he lost confidence, but he started throwing 20 to 25 knuckleballs a game. Over his last 6 or 7 starts, he's been outstanding, keeps you in the ball game, and he has taken the knuckleball, only shows it a couple of times. The dimensions in left field, it is a hitter's ballpark, folks. Right field has been measured. Some say it is not really 330, it's only 320. Right center, some say it's only 345. The wind usually blows out to right field from Lake Ontario.
Wilson steps in at 288. He's stolen 33 bases. For whatever reason, he's had trouble over the years against the Blue Jays. Just a .218 lifetime hitter against Toronto. His lowest mark against any club. Strike one is called.
You wonder if the reason is the same reason he had trouble in the World Series with the Philadelphia Phillies pitching staff. Power pitchers, which is what the Blue Jays are primarily made of, busting them inside with fastballs.
Not a power pitcher today in Alexander. A ball and a strike. It worked out well for the Royals last night. As Wilson sat out, Lynn Jones, a last-minute replacement, had 4 base hits. Two and one.
Last pitch is something that will surprise you about Alexander. He does throw the fastball up in the high 80s at times. If you figure, as some scouts would say, an average major league fastball is around 85 miles an hour. He's been clocked at 88. And with that great straight change, makes the fastball look that much better.
Count evens at 2-2 to Willie Wilson.
Alexander throws what they call a circle change. If you took your thumb and your index finger, your pointing finger, put them together like a circle, and the ball rolls off the last 3 fingers, last touch by the little finger, look like a screwball at times.
A little bloop, and it's going to drop in. So Wilson is aboard to start the ball game.
Does that look familiar, like last night's game when they did the same thing to Jimmy Key, the left-hander? About 3 little bloop hits.
Jimmy Key had good enough stuff, more than good enough, to win last night. In fact, the Royals said he broke several bats during the course of the game, but a lot of bloop hits fell in. On the other hand, Charlie Leibrandt was in constant trouble for the Royals and kept wriggling off the hook. Had a shutout until Lloyd Moseby homered off him with 2 out in the 9th.
Interesting to see with Manny Lee, the second baseman, who's primarily a shortstop. Jimmy Williams, one of the coaches, teaching him to make the pivot. He has trouble making the pivot on double plays.
Swing and a miss by Lonnie Smith, who started very slowly with Kansas City after coming over from the Cardinals, but has hit over 300 since July 1st. How good is Alexander's pickoff move?
He's very good. He changes rhythms. He holds runners on well, throws to first quickly, and also unloads the ball on the home plate. In fact, this entire staff is good. They'll give your catcher a chance.
Wilson has been caught stealing 10 times. So his success rate is not quite as good this year as his overall career average.
You wonder with some knee problems if he's even got some thoughts of running. That's why he was scratched in last night's ball game. Still doesn't have the 1 foot on the turf.
There he goes. And the throw by Witt. Got it.
Ball pops out of the glove. Tony Fernandez, it was awfully close. Larry Barnett, the crew chief, down at second base. Ernie Witt unloaded the ball in a hurry. Ernie Witt, Johnny Sullivan, the bullpen coach, worked on his throwing all spring training. Wilson's got it beaten even though the ball pops out of Fernandez's glove. And you look at this ball club, Wilson, Lonnie Smith, and Brett can run.
The interesting thing is, Tony, he did beat the throw, but until the ball was dropped, Barnett was going to call him out. Look at that. He had called him out, and it would have been an incorrect call.
Didn't see the ball scoot out of the way. You got it exactly right.
Now it's 0-2 to Lonnie Smith. And it gets away from Witt, and Wilson will be at third.
Alexander, basically a 2-pitch pitcher, fastball and the changeup. He will throw an occasional slider or slurve, but he does a lot of different things with the fastball, and also is beginning to throw that changeup sidearm. He just threw a sidearm to Lonnie Smith that got away.
Mike Ferraro, the third base coach. Jose Martinez in the coaching box at first for the Royals.
I would think that's a pass ball. Haven't got it officially yet because Witt did get his glove on it. They scored it a wild pitch.
They scored it officially as a wild pitch. George Brett in the on-deck circle.
It's the kind of day Bobby Cox has his third baseman and the rest of the infield back with nobody down. Balls are hard to pick up in this park off that screen that glistens in the sun. See a lot of outfielders in this park, Bob, especially visiting players who lose fly balls on these bright high sky days.
2-2 to Smith. Also, the turf tends to be even more springy in the daytime than at night. Liner right back at Alexander. And Wilson is able to make it safely back to third.
That is just outstanding base running right there. With nobody out, and I would add coaching Ferraro, I'm sure Ferraro programmed in his Wilson's mind. There's another changeup. Or possibly took something off his breaking ball. Programmed Wilson saying the ball has got to hit the ground before you move, pal. Look at how quick he is getting back.
Just to explain, in the heat of the day, and the temperatures are in the 80s today, that turf will become a little harder than at night. and you'll get an even higher bounce. Here's Brett. Swings on the first one, and this might get Willie Wilson home. Bell has a good arm, but it's deep enough. And 1-0 Royals. So Wilson with a bloop single, a stolen base. He moves to third on a wild pitch and scores on Brett's sacrifice fly.
72 RBIs now for George Brett. That leads the Royals.
And also places him on the fringe of the leaders in the American League. Don Mattingly has 95 to lead the league. Brett is in the top 10.
So the wild pitch to this point hurts Doyle Alexander.
As you may know, Hal McRae's teenage son, Brian, was signed by the Royals. Infield prospect, also had a scholarship offer to play football at Kansas. And McRae was asked if having a 17-year-old son already playing professional ball makes him feel old. He said, no, what makes me feel old is guys throwing the fastball by me.
We haven't been doing it the last couple of weeks, though.
McRae is 39. Off the outside corner, 2-0.
Hal would let his son play organized baseball growing up, Little League, Legion ball. He said the parents were too tough on kids, and he went to a couple of ball games and said he's not going to do it. So we had him out at the ballpark in Kansas City a lot.
Fernandez underhands that throw over, and Cecil Fielder does a good job picking it up on the short hop. But the Royals manage a run and lead 1-0 after half an inning in Toronto. Danny Jackson prepares to face this lineup. Switch hitter Tony Fernandez, leadoff man and shortstop. Lloyd Mosby in center field, had a homer last night. Jeff Burrows, the veteran DH. George Bell in an RBI drought, hasn't knocked one home in 9 games. He'll hit cleanup. Jesse Barfield in right field. Cecil Fielder against the left-handed pitcher replaces Upshaw at first base. Garth Orge at third. Mullenix sits against the left-hander. Ernie Witt will catch, and Manny Lee for the injured Damaso Garcia at second base. Fernandez is at 276. Even with Garcia playing last night, they had him in the leadoff spot. Garcia was batting third. The injured knee made it unlikely that he could steal a base, and he has been a good RBI man this season, Garcia has, so Cox hit him third.
Garcia with just over 50 RBIs out of the leadoff spot, plus 2 misses speeds, 20-plus stolen bases. Danny Jackson's got a delivery with that will remind you of Jerry Koosman on the lower body action. A running fastball that sinks. He's got a vicious slider. He's been involved in the only 3 1-0 ball games so far for this Royal staff. He's 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 no decision.
1-2 the count to Fernandez, who had a couple of hits last night. What a contrast. Young left-hander Jackson, 23 years old, throw very hard. Fernandez fouls that one off and scatters the spectators behind the Kansas City dugout. Doyle Alexander, Jackson's opponent today, will be 35 next month. A right-hander, of course, and although, as Tony says, he can throw in the high 80s on occasion, primarily a finesse guy.
The pause of the action right now is because Tony Fernandez foul ball hit someone in the stands, and he's obviously concerned about it. And that's why he's not getting into the batter's box.
As soon as we know something about the spectator who was hit, we'll let you know. That broke Fernandez's bat. In comes Brett to throw him out. There's some speculation that Brett might be in line for a Gold Glove this year, which would be quite a change in image over past seasons.
George Brett has always covered as much ground as any third baseman in the American League. He's had trouble with his throwing arm. Smith, Wilson, Dane Orge in right. George Brett, Otis Concepcion, Frank White, who's making more errors than usual. Steve Balboni at first. John Wathan, the catcher. Danny Jackson, the pitcher. Left-hander have given Toronto trouble at times because of Mosby's bat. Negate some of his power numbers. Upshaw out of the lineup. Witt's bat in today, but he doesn't play against left-handers too much. You get Mullick's bat out of the lineup. Plus, it hurts their running game, which is so important to them.
That's one reason why a playoff matchup between Kansas City and Toronto would be so intriguing. 0-2 to Mosby. Dick Hauser has 3 left-handers. Jackson, Leibrandt, and Black in his starting rotation. In addition, Kansas City is a good turf club, obviously playing on the artificial stuff at home, whereas the Blue Jays generally enjoy an advantage in that regard. A drive to center field. Wilson will back up and take it for the second out. The Blue Jays are the only team in the American League East that doesn't play on natural grass, and their team is built to play on turf. It's an advantage they enjoy over the other contenders in their own division, an advantage that would be largely negated if they face Kansas City in the playoffs.
Toronto has trouble when they get out of this ballpark scoring runs, unless they're in Seattle, Minnesota. They had trouble down in Texas on the dirt and the grass. We'll be getting into September, where they played 22 of their last 34 games here in this ballpark, which will be somewhat of an advantage. They start a long road trip right after this series.
Strike one to Burroughs. The Blue Jays hope these games don't matter, but potentially you could have some genuine excitement here on the final weekend of the regular season when they play 3 against the Yanks. A shot, and Brett's got it. So the Blue Jays go out in order in the bottom of the first, and Kansas City leads it 1-0 after 1. We appreciate the compliment, and in return we'll put you on national TV, albeit briefly. We go to the top half of the second. Dane Orge, Frank White, and Steve Balboni due for the Royals against Doyle Alexander. Pat Sheridan is on the disabled list, and Orge had begun to hit well even before Sheridan was disabled and was taking playing time away from him. Now you say, how can a guy be hitting well at 216? He was well beneath that before he picked up. And this one will be foul.
Two guys that were so instrumental in this Western Division championship for Dick Howser and the Royals last year, Pat Sheridan and Darryl Motley, have struggled most of this year. Motley is beginning to hit a little bit more. He's a right-handed hitter. Sheridan on the DL, as Bob told you.
Up high, 1-1.
It's a good young pitching staff this Royals have. We've got Quisenberry, who's throwing the ball well now, anchoring the staff, coming in with all the saves. You get that wind blowing out slightly to right field, and that may be a reason why Dane Orge is in the lineup today. See if you can get one up in that little jet stream and push the ball out. Although the wind is starting to swirl now. Started the ball game blowing to right, now swirling and blowing a little bit to left field. The ball still carries well to right here.
2-1 pitch. Change up, and it's driven down the right field line, and this one is fair and up against the fence. Extra bases for Dane Orge and a leadoff double.
Looked like Doyle Alexander got one of those change-ups up in the strike zone. Orge was fooled just slightly, was a little bit, but he held the bat up enough to get it in the right field corner. They're playing him to hit the left field and giving him the right field line. One of the great assets of this Toronto Blue Jays ball club is that outstanding speed in the throwing arms of the 3 outfielders. With just one job, get the ball to the right side, get Orge to third base with less than 2 outs.
White has had better batting averages than his .241. He's going to bunt, not even going to take a chance, and Fielder picks it up and tags him. And Orge advances to third on the sacrifice, where he has a chance to chat briefly with brother Garth.
Orge now more concerned about looking into Bobby Cox than he is with his brother, checking whether he wants him in or back. You've got a guy like Balboni up. As hard as he swings with that strength, it's tough to play on the turf, so they brought the left side in halfway, the right side in all the way.
Balboni has fanned 118 times. Check swing foul. And this is a situation, obviously, where Alexander could use the strikeout. Further indication that he's a guy who can be pitched to, but if you make a mistake, his 24 home runs indicate the other side of the story.
He's also had 9 home runs in his last 20 games. Since McRae has started to swing the bat better, it's nicer for Balboni. Not as much pressure moving him down in the lineup. one time talked about Balboni being his cleanup hitter. Tried him there on occasion.
The 1-1. That'll be foul. A ball and 2 strikes.
Balboni, of course, out of the Yankee organization, Mr. Avram Fogelman, one of the co-owners. He'll be the complete owner of the ball club as he purchased the stock from Ewing Kauffman a couple more years. But he loved Balboni in the minor leagues, a franchise he owned, and wanted him over here for his power. Figured he could be a gate attractor. You get a slugger like this, hits home runs, he can be that. Wonder how many he'd hit if he was out of that big monster in Kansas City. Big ballpark.
The Royals have hit 102 homers this year, 66 of them on the road. Swing and a miss, and he struck him out.
Alexander gets so tough. He drops down to the side. He can hit that outside edge and low with a fastball. He's doing this more often since he's become a little more successful in the last 7 starts. Makes that left hip and shoulder fly out a little bit when Alexander comes from the side.
Wathan has been to the plate only 69 times this year. At one time, the regular catcher for the Royals. Sundberg's got the everyday job now.
And even with 2 outs and a runner on third, Garth Orge was creeping in because Wathan will do a lot of different things to try and beat you. Remember when he was the good base stealer? Look where Orge is. Wathan has been known to drop a bunt down, try and score a run.
Alexander drops down sidearm again against the second strike, 0-2. He is on the verge of pitching out of a very tight spot. 1-2. The plate umpire is Big Ken Kaiser. You may have heard the story earlier this year. They said in Baltimore they couldn't get readings on the radar gun because he just blocked the mechanism out. He used to be a professional wrestler.
Hatchet.
He took something off. He fans Wathan, so he got Balboni and Wathan on strikes and leaves Orge, who led the inning off with a double, stranded at third. And here we see the most coveted seats in Exhibition Stadium up in section 49. Not only is it a lengthy cab ride to home plate, but since this place is laid out actually for football, those seats face away from the action. You have to twist around to your right, even to focus on the diamond.
No question this franchise last year and this year would have drawn 3 million people for the year if they'd had a good ballpark. They still project maybe by 1988 an open-air stadium with a retractable dome, or what they call it, kind of a bow tie effect. They're averaging over 30,000 per ball game.
And they've got well over 30,000 here today.
There are only about 16,000 good seats in the entire park. People keep flocking back.
Among their everyday players, Bell might be the Blue Jays MVP this year. But as you saw in that graphic a moment ago, he hasn't knocked home a run in his last 9 games. 1-1 pitch. 2 balls and a strike. The Blue Jays have the best record in the major leagues at 72-43. That's .626 baseball. But they are barely over 500 against left-handed pitching.
Well, for the last couple of seasons, the bullpen has taken a lot of heat as far as why they didn't contend. Some even say if they'd had a decent bullpen last year or a real authentic stopper, they would have beaten Detroit. I don't believe that. I think you look at their hitting attack against the teams on the road that they have to beat.
Well hit to left center. Willie Wilson is back on the track, and against the padding, he's got it. It happened to Bell last night, too. Gave one a long ride to just about the same spot.
He has such a lively bat. You get the ball down, I don't care how hard you're throwing it. Got that slight uppercut. Just gets under it. Willie Wilson battling a high sky, and that breeze going out to left field just keeps drifting it back to the pad. Willie Wilson chases the ball down as well as anybody in the game.
Barfield is especially dangerous in this ballpark. He's got 79 lifetime homers, 55 of them here. And he's a guy who can go to the opposite field with power, and that helps him in this ballpark.
Well, Cito Gaston, the hitting instructor, would like to have him go to right center field on breaking balls a little bit more. He actually hits more home runs off right-handed pitchers. Every year, Barfield's become a little more well-disciplined as far as swinging at his pitch. Sometimes he takes too many, though. It's a lot of good fastball strikes.
1-2, and he still strikes out a lot. He fanned for the 100th time this season last night. Bobby Cox and Dick Howser were teammates briefly with the Yankees in the late 60s, and then also were on the Yankee coaching staff in the mid-70s.
Cox manages so much like Ralph Houck. Doesn't overmanage. He's got the platoons going, catch and third base usually. Has started at first base. You know where you stand with Cox.
A high pop. Any one of 4 players could take it. Whoop! And it's Concepcion who will. Concepcion lost one in the twilight last night. Ball landing about 20 feet behind him.
Looked like it was one of those cases where at least 2 players, Brett and White, were yelling, "I've got it," at the same time. And all of a sudden they both backed off, and here's Onik standing there.
Upshaw's pop really fooled him last night. He just stood there with hands on hips while the ball landed out on what would be the outfield grass on a natural turf field. It's interesting that Cox continues to use the right-handed batter fielder, even though Upshaw is warming up with the stick. Upshaw was hitting .217 in late June and has hit over .340 since then.
Oddly enough, Upshaw was hitting left-handed pitchers, as we look at Willie, better than he was hitting right-handers. Fielder formerly with the Royals. In fact, he jumped right over AAA baseball, the Syracuse franchise. Came from AA ball where he had about 80 RBIs, 18 home runs. He's got a good short stroke. Many times they try and pitch him up and in, as they do many big guys.
1-2.
And Fielder started coming around in winter baseball, where he got his weight down a little bit. Jose Martinez, the first base coach for the Royals, shaped him up considerably in winter baseball at Columbia, South America.
Taken high. Jackson faced the Blue Jays last Sunday in Kansas City, worked 6 2/3, wasn't involved in the decision. The Blue Jays won it in extra innings 5-3 on 10th inning homers by Oliver and Orge. Full count.
Danny Jackson's got the slider in the gear. It's a slider like Steve Carlton's, Ron Guidry, Sparky Lyle in the primes of their career. It breaks so late. You swing a lot of pitches down and in that are bad, like that.
First strikeout for Jackson. He's retired all 6 Toronto hitters he's faced, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. A lot of stickers on Doyle Alexander's bag. He's been traded 5 times, released once, declared for free agency 1 time during his career, and evidently works best under Bobby Cox.
The shortstop, number 2, Onyx Concepcion.
Even when he doesn't have his good stuff, he usually keeps his team in the ball game, and that's a sign of a good pitcher. The last time out in Texas, he left with a 3-1 lead, pitching on 3 days rest, and it was lost out of the bullpen. Cliff Johnson with a 3-run home run off Bill Caudle.
Alexander's been involved in some big trades in his career. Started out with the Dodgers. Then in 1971, he went to Baltimore in a deal which sent Frank Robinson to L.A. Actually, that was prior to the '72 season. The deal made in December of '71.
There's not been much offensive production from Dick Howser's shortstops, although Concepcion's starting to hit a little bit now.
Barfield had him played shallow, and thus he's able to make the catch for the first out. Another trade Alexander was in the middle of, that big deal in June of 1976 between Baltimore and the Yankees. Alexander went to the Yanks with Ken Holtzman, Grant Jackson, Elrod Hendricks, Rudy May, Tippy Martinez, Scott McGregor, Rick Dempsey. All went over to Baltimore in that trade.
Garth Iorg is creeping way in at third now. Well, Bobby Cox knew, after having seen him and having Alexander at Atlanta, that if his arm was sound, he could pitch. And the reports from a lot of the scouts that saw him said his arm was sound, so they went out and got him. In fact, the Yankees picked up, I think, a big part of last year's salary. Pat Gillick's been a genius in snitching players from other organizations with his great scouting staff.
Check swing. Iorg is there. And didn't get him anyway.
It was a high hopper, and then Garth thought he had him all the way. Wilson from the left side absolutely flew down the first baseline in the second half. Looked like he almost tried to slap it by Iorg. And he gets in gear right about here with that bad knee, and then Iorg came up and thought he had him easily. The first base umpire, Rocky Rose, signaled safe, and it was a correct call.
So Wilson, who singled, stole a base, and scored in the first inning, is aboard here in the third with one out.
Toronto, in their last road series, 3 games, Kansas City, 3 at Texas, they played rather sluggishly. Weren't swinging the bats that well. Don't know if it's tired as the dog days have started. So Bobby Cox hopes it is just a little bit of tired from some warm weather, and not that they're looking behind the Yankees.
The Blue Jays took up residence in first place in the American League East on May 13th, and they have been there ever since. Their lead over the Yankees about a month or so ago was only a game or 2. Then they widened it to as many as 9.5. Now it's down to 6.
And they beat California Angels in this ballpark 4 straight when the Yankees were losing.
1-1 to Lonnie Smith, who scorched one right back to Alexander in the first inning. There goes Willie Wilson. Line drive, double play. Manny Lee can walk it over if he wants to. The hit and run backfires. And after 2.5, still 1-0 KC.
Watch Willie Wilson. You talk about rhythm in a swing or rhythm in a pitcher's motion. He's actually, with a little wiggling of the hips, perhaps even counting mentally to time the delivery of Doyle Alexander, but to no avail as Lonnie Smith lines into double play. The runner going.
Lonnie Smith has fired off a couple of bullets so far today and has an 0 for 2 to show for it. Here's Garth Iorg. Brother Dane plays him shallow in right field and close to the line. They give him a lot of the left field line, and in center field, Willie Wilson a step or 2 on the right field side of second base.
Garth Iorg hitting over 300 last season. He just had an atrocious year. With a very productive tandem down at third base, Mulnix and Iorg for Bobby Cox. Iorg did not like that call. He thought it was low and away. Ken Kaiser says it was a strike. Minnesota 2, Seattle nothing.
Why is it a final already? They started at 11 a.m. Central Time in the Metrodome so they could get out of there in time for the Vikings to play a preseason game against the Steelers there tonight.
You know, that last call right there, most of the talk around the Blue Jays clubhouse, they saw it breaking ball way inside. They saw tapes of the 4 pitches thrown to Willie Randolph to walk in the winning run for the Yankees last night, and boy, I guess Bob Stanley was heated. 3-1 second inning Chicago over Milwaukee. Well, they talked about how the pitches looked good, and whether the intimidation factor of Yankee Stadium, Billy Martin, George Steinbrenner might not have got a call and maybe a ball game.
Talked about Minnesota playing early to accommodate the Vikings. Strangely, the Padres have a Saturday off, and they'll play 2 against Atlanta tomorrow. The Chargers have Jack Murphy Stadium for an exhibition game tonight. Iorg didn't realize that the ball had gotten away from Wathan briefly, so he tags him for the first out. Second strikeout for Jackson.
Padres have 2 consecutive weeks like that, don't they? Saturdays off. What a vicious slider Danny Jackson threw. This is a great young pitching staff that John Sherholz, the Royals general managers, helped build. Look at Jackson, about 23. Saberhagen, early 20s. Guba's the early 20s. The old-timer on the staff is Charlie Liebrenner, what, 28? Bud Black struggling this year after being their ace the last couple of years, just 26. They can sign him. He'll be around a long time and competitive.
Witt usually doesn't play against left-handers, but Gary Allenson, who has replaced the injured Buck Martinez as their right-handed hitting catcher, is just 1 for his last 21, so Witt gets the call today. You mentioned the young pitching staff. What a transformation it's been. In September of 1983, the Royals pitching staff included people like Gaylord Perry, Vida Blue, Eric Rasmussen, Steve Rankle, Larry Gura, and Don Hood. Paul Splittorff as well. So they've turned it over in less than 2 years. Boy, was he late on that swing. Third consecutive batter fanned by Jackson.
You know, the risk you run when you take an Ernie Witt, who's been a platoon player, and of course that great replay that showed in our pregame show of Buck Martinez fracturing his leg. But they platoon most of the year. Now that Allenson's here, he's playing against most left-handers, but you run the risk with a guy like Witt, who's been such a good run producer, of ruining his swing against right-handers. Changes to hang in there more against left-handers. You could take his year down the drain the last month and a half.
Fouled off by Manny Lee, who is batting for just the 29th time this season. He has only 4 hits, all of them singles.
And this is the time of the year where lack of playing time that a Manny Lee had, Lewis Thornton, Ron Shepard, who's been sent down, when you don't have veterans and bench strength, you may not notice it the first 3 or 4 months, but perhaps some of the regulars have gotten worn down and it'll start showing now. Perhaps that's the reason for the sluggishness for some of the Blue Jays.
Jackson a pitch away from striking out the side, which he does.
Wow.
And going back to the last out of the second inning, he struck out 4 in a row. 1-0 Royals after 3. John Lowe recently noted in the Philadelphia Inquirer, if you're not yet 44 years old, George Brett has the highest single-season batting average in your lifetime. 390 in 1980, the highest anybody has managed since Ted Williams' 406 in 1941.
You qualify and I don't. That's what the American League batting leaders look like right now. If you'd have to pick a guy who you think is going to win it, I would say Bogg, because he will take walks. Brett is more of a situation hitter. He will pull balls in the heat of a ball game to try and take you deep. Whereas Boggs will go the other way more often.
The amazing thing about Brett, with his power, and he leads the American League in slugging percentage, an often overlooked category, is that he rarely strikes out. He's walked 70 times this year, which places him, along with his batting average, second to Toby Harrah in on-base percentage in the American League, and yet he struck out only 32 times.
Over his last 58 ball games, he's hitting about .415. He's one of those hitters that is different in this regard. So many hitters who hit with power, if you pitch him away and play him away, they'll go that way. Boggs is that way. If you pitch Brett away, he will sneak up on the plate and still hook the ball and still take you deep to right. He can go out and get the ball now the last few years. He's moved up on the plate just a little bit the last couple of seasons.
Alexander is ahead of him 1-2. Brett went 1 for 4 here last night. Boggs was 0 for 4 for the Red Sox against the Yankees. And Brett moves to within a point. Changeup hit right back to Alexander. And Brett is now 0 for 1. He had a sacrifice fly his first time up.
Brett waited. You can see some of the Charlie Lau trademarks. That bat touching his shoulder. He goes out of his strike zone on the changeup. He still waited on it all right and tried to hit it straight up the middle. Just topped it.
McRae grounded as short his first time. Been nursing a sore hamstring this past week, but playing through it. Oh, 0-2.
Royals DHs have driven in 82 runs so far this season. Blue Jays just 57. Remember, the Blue Jays lost Cliff Johnson. New York Yankees won Boston 0 in the second inning.
Scheduled pitchers there: Nipper for the Red Sox, Guidry at 15-4 for New York. A called strike 3. Alexander dispatches McRae on 3 pitches.
Having Alexander on a pitching staff is almost like having 2 pitching coaches. Al Whitmire, the resident pitching coach genius for the Blue Jays. Many times we'll have Doyle Alexander in the area when they talk over pitching problems, mechanics, philosophy, series of pitches.
Al Whitmire, the former St. Louis Brownie. Not too many of those left. Orge, who doubled his first time, pops this one up. Lee retreats as Barfield and Mosby come in, and it's Barfield. A 1-2-3 inning for Alexander after 3.5. The Royals, with that first inning run, still leading. So football returns to NBC tomorrow. Our first preseason telecast, 4 Eastern time, out of the Coliseum in LA. The Redskins and the Raiders. Super Bowl pairing of a couple seasons ago. Bottom of the 4th, and Tony Fernandez leads it off.
Danny Jackson appears to have conquered his control problems that he suffered so severely his first 9 ball games of the year, his first 9 starts. Over the last 14, he's been around the strike zone more often than not. He hasn't pitched that long. His 4th professional season.
He's ahead of Fernandez, 0-2. Pat Gillick, the Blue Jays mastermind, recently quoted as saying Tony Fernandez has Rod Carew hands. Is that comparison apt?
I know one thing. Cito Gast, the hitting instructor, had him out for extra hitting almost every day in spring training. Got him to draw his shoulder and hands back to try and give him a little more power. And he's been hitting the ball with more authority. He's disciplined, too. He'll take a base on balls. It's a pretty good combination. He was hitting 9th and Damaso Garcia leading off. They really set the table. The DH, of course, in this league for the 2, 3, and 4 hitters.
Still 1-2. That willingness to take a walk sets him apart from Garcia, a very atypical leadoff man who has walked fewer than 20 times this season in almost 500 at-bats already.
George Bell doesn't take too many walks, nor does Garth Orge on this team.
Little pop back. Wathan for a look, but it's out of play.
Bob, the way his slider is breaking, the hitters have been up there almost swinging defensively. It breaks so late and is so hard that they're just swinging at it, just trying to stay alive and just foul it off.
You mentioned Jackson finding his control. In his first 8 starts, he was averaging better than 5 walks per 9 innings pitched.
Either a cut fastball or the hard slider.
In his last 14 starts, Jackson has averaged fewer than 3 walks per 9 innings. And now he has fanned 5 Toronto batters in a row, going back to the last out of the 2nd inning. Let's go to New York.
All right, Bob, here in New York, the Yankees have taken the early lead against the Red Sox. In the bottom of the 2nd, Dave Winfield finds the gap in left center. Willie Randolph and Don Mattingly score. Mattingly earlier picked up his 96th RBI. Winfield goes to 3rd with a triple. And the Yankees, who are chasing Toronto, lead it 3-0 in the bottom of the 2nd.
Thanks, Bill. Obviously, a Yankee win coupled with a Toronto loss would move New York to within 5. And as we've noted, they have 7 head-to-head meetings remaining with the Blue Jays.
The last 3 games of the season are right here at Exhibition Stadium, 4th, 5th, and 6th of October against the New York Yankees. You know, the thing, these teams have to play each other, too. Boston looks like they're going to start scoring a few more runs. Baltimore starting to get a little bit better now. They start playing each other, and sometimes it's a lot harder to pick up 6 ball games. You might beat your competitor head-to-head, and somebody else comes along that's playing well in this Eastern Division and beats the heck out of you.
Misses the inside corner, 1-2 to Mosby.
You know, Mosby has hit in the 3 spot against right-handers most of the season. Number 2 against left-handers. And if you'd have said coming out of spring training the Blue Jays would be 6 games ahead with Mosby, with about 6 other guys with more RBIs than Mosby, you'd have said, no, it couldn't happen.
Jackson has struck out 6 in a row.
Another hellacious slider.
The American League record for consecutive strikeouts in a game is 8. Nolan Ryan did it twice in 1972 and 73 for the Angels. Ron Davis did it for the Yankees in 1981. The Major League record is 10. Tom Seaver, in a game where he fanned 19 in a 9-inning game, struck out the last 10 against San Diego. That was in 1970.
Boy, have there been some defensive swings against Danny Jackson. One of those 6 consecutive strikeouts.
Burroughs trying to snap that string, and does. This will be playable in shallow right. White back, Orge in, and it's Dane Orge for the catch. So Burroughs manages to make contact, but the Blue Jays still haven't managed to hit off Jackson. Back after this from your local station. You know, the Royals historically have been a strong finishing team. It's happened many times in division races through the years, including last year. They wound up at 84 and 78. On July 18th, they were 40 and 51, 8 games back. And from that point on, Dick Hauser's team was 44 and 27 and won it by 3.
It's what they've done since the All-Star break, 18 and 8. Red, of course, has been on a tear for a lot longer than that. McRae's bat is added. The pitching is stabilizing. Quisenberry pitching better. Dick Hauser in the background managing probably the most successful expansion franchise. Western Division champion, 76, 7, 78, 80, and 84.
Well, the Blue Jays' own blueprint for bringing them as White slaps it down to Garth Orge. A quick out on the top of the 5th. Their blueprint for bringing themselves from an expansion team, what, 1977, 76, to their present position as a contender. You really can't beat the way they've gone about it. They might rank as one of the most successful expansion teams when we look at it 5-6 years from now.
Well, they went out and built through their farm system while they were waiting for that to develop. They went out and got people like the George Bells, Tom Hakey in the compensation pool out of Texas last year has been outstanding for this ball club. You can go on and on.
2-0 the count to Balboni. Oh, there it is. The Mets, of course, had no success at all. It wasn't anything gradual. They came out of nowhere in 1969 to win the World Championship, and there's how long it took some other franchises.
Balboni's the kind of hitter who you get a pitch up in his kitchen and he'll swing through to foul it back. Sometimes you come right back in the same area and he hits it. You got to move the ball around on him. Change speeds.
The interesting thing about the Royals, even though it took them 8 years to win a division title, same as it took the Mets, by their 3rd year, they were playing better than .500 ball, and they'd established themselves as a contending team. They built toward it, while the Mets were a skyrocket from out of nowhere. Full count to Balboni. Hit to short. Fernandez flips over to Fielder. Now Fernandez has made 22 errors this year, and only Franco of the Cleveland Indians, who plays on a terrible infield there, has made more among all major league shortstops, and yet you contend Fernandez is the American League's best defensive shortstop.
I think he covers more ground than any other shortstop in the American League. Alfredo Griffin with Oakland, a similar type shortstop. Fernandez trouble comes with his erratic throwing arm, throwing on the run. Style he developed on those rough infields in the Dominican Republic, surrounding balls.
0-1 to Wathan. Manny Lee, another product of the Dominican Republic, throws Wathan out. Alexander and Jackson settling into quite a duel. We go to the bottom of the 5th, 1-0 KC. We remarked earlier on Danny Jackson's improved control, and he's really got it going today, as you can see from that graphic. And in one stretch, fanned 6 in a row.
He has had such amazing control with his slider. It breaks so fast, they're swinging at a few bad ones, too.
Bell fouls it off for strike 1.
I don't know how hard he's throwing, but there are pitches like that last one that he got up and in on George Bell that have got to be up in the 90s.
Bell sent Willie Wilson to the wall in left center his first time up. 1-1. Let's get this in while we can. This telecast presented by authority of Major League Baseball may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
He is going hard.
Well, there was some heat on that baby.
He
1 and 2.
He hasn't thrown many pitches upstairs. He's pretty much kept the ball down, but he sees now how his fastball is crackling, and upstairs it just took off.
He's faced 13 hitters so far and thrown a first pitch strike to 12 of them. His 6th consecutive strikeouts a moment ago tied Steve Busby's team record. Full count now to Bell. Busby, who pitched 2 no-hitters during his career, struck out 6 consecutive Red Sox back in 1974.
There are a lot of parts where the background is bad and you can't see pitches during day baseball, but not this one. You've got a black background hitting out of the stands. You can pick it up, so it's all Jackson. Went slider, 3 and 2. He's done that one other time in this ball game.
By the way, the woman who was hit by a foul ball earlier today in the stands was hit above the right eye on the forehead. She's okay. There's a bruise, but no cut. Again, the 3-2. And it holds there.
He hasn't thrown a ball straight yet, has he? It doesn't sink. It doesn't run like that last one did. He throws a cutter, darts in on the right-hander, and then changes speed a little bit on the slider.
And there's his 7th strikeout. We'll be back to Toronto in a minute. First, let's check with Bill McAtee in New York.
All right, Bob, in Milwaukee, the White Sox are starting to pull away early from the Brewers. In the top of the 2nd, Greg Walker with an RBI double down the left field line. Brian Little scores the 5th White Sox run of the game. Chicago now leads 7-1 on a bases-loaded walk and a passed ball.
All right, Bill, Jesse Barfield steps in. He popped to short his first time.
Brief argument as Bell was set down on strikes. George Bell thought that... No, it wasn't. He thought that he argued with Ken Kaiser, the home plate umpire, that after he fouled it, the ball might have hit the ground, was scooped out by Walker, but he caught it cleanly.
Into shallow center field with White back and Wilson in, and it's Willie. Again, we remind our viewers we'll select the NBC Light Beer from Miller player of the game at the conclusion of the contest, and the pitchers have the inside track right now.
There have been a bunch of overmatched Blue Jays hitters to this point. 14 of them consecutively, as a matter of fact. Burroughs hit a line drive to third in the first. Not been a lot of good swings off Danny Jackson.
Fielder hits it up the middle. First base hit, first base runner for Toronto.
When Leon Roberts left the Blue Jays, it was Cecil Fielder that came over to their farm system from the Royals organization. Sinking fastball. Fielder goes with nicely.
And it breaks a string of 14 in a row, retired by Jackson to start the ball game.
Alboni down on first is going to play behind Fielder, who doesn't have any kind of running speed.
One reason why the Blue Jays have not been as successful against left-handers as they have against right-handers, they give up some power when they switch to the right-hand hitting platoon. Orge, like Mullenix, for example, is a 300 hitter, but Mullenix has the greater power. And obviously they lose a lot when Allenson catches instead of Witt. Well hit to center field. Willie Wilson will back up and have room. And that'll do it. Toronto puts their first hit on the board, but they're still without a run. 1-0 Kansas City after 5, and here's another edition of Baseball Remembers.
Footwork presents Baseball Remembers. Willie McCovey remembers when the 1962 World Series came down to his last at-bat.
The first pitch he threw to me, I hit it long and foul over the right field fence. I got way out front of it. Then the very second pitch, I had a line drive that I thought and everybody else thought was a base hit that was going to win the series. But I didn't know Richardson was standing there. I found out later that he wouldn't have been playing me over there, but apparently he went over there to kind of smooth off the infield a little bit, and before he could get back around to where he would have pitched me, I guess Terry was already in the process of making his pitch. It was just one of those things. I hit the ball as well as I could, and it just happened to be right at him.
Do not adjust your television set. Merely the reflection. Well, they get artsy in the truck now and then, don't they?
Now you put Willie Jacobs on a camera, no telling what you're going to get.
Doyle Alexander gave up a first-inning run. They didn't hit him hard. A soft single by Wilson, a stolen base, a wild pitch, and then Willie came home on Brett's sacrifice fly. That's the difference in the game right now. Meanwhile, the Yankees lead Boston 3-1 in the bottom of the third at Yankee Stadium.
Toronto in the roughest stretch of their year right now. In the midst of the 16 games out of 19 on the road, they just finished 6 of those at Kansas City and Texas, where they went 500. Alexander, the kind of pitcher who will not give in to a hitter. Even when he gets behind, 2 balls, 1 strike, 1-0, he's going to make you hit his pitch. And sometimes he'll go out there without his good stuff and still keep you in the ballgame. He looks to have good stuff today, though.
Concepcion hits one right on the nose, but Bell is there to take it. As again, we check with Bill McAtee in New York for an update.
Bob, here in New York, the Red Sox have finally scored against the Yankees as Dwight Evans drills a shot into the gap. He ends up with a double. That brings home the American League's leading hitter, Wade Boggs, who had singled. He is 1 for 2 today, and it's 3-1 Yankees.
Thanks, Bill. Willie Wilson has 2 of the 3 Kansas City hits. Neither hit particularly well. Fielder comes up with it. Nice play. Alexander covers, and they got it.
Says the fielder is not supposed to do that. But he makes an outstanding play, and he had hit a moving target, Doyle Alexander. He came into spring training 2 springs ago at about almost 250 pounds. He's a changed man this year down in Dunedin, Florida. Came in about 220. Got in shape. Winter baseball.
Lonnie Smith taking plenty of time getting into the box as Concepcion and Wilson have gone out on 2 pitches. Danny Jackson has barely had a chance to sit down. Look at that big off-speed pitch for a strike.
You know, really, the rhythm that Danny Jackson's in and the few pitches that he has thrown, he probably wants to get right back out there, not get any breathers.
1-1. The roar you hear, the fans here in Toronto amusing themselves by executing the wave.
I take it does not amuse you.
You may infer what you wish. You know, Sparky Anderson made the comment that a few years ago, the fans here in Toronto were so docile that he once emerged from the dugout to change pitchers, and he told the fans seated around the Tiger dugout to be quiet, and they complied. Things have changed here since then.
They do not sit on their hands since this team has been competitive the last few years. Roy Hartsfield, the first Blue Jays manager. Bobby Maddox played a big role in this team, especially with the young pitchers, right there on the black and at the knees.
Doyle Alexander records his 4th strikeout. We go to the bottom of the 6th in a game that's zipping right along, 1-0 KC. 1-0 Kansas City. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. I'm going to tell you a very interesting Bobby Cox story.
Boy, I can't wait.
You follow the Blue Jays almost on a daily basis, broadcasting some of their games locally. Did you know that on 2 different occasions this year, Bobby Cox, and there he is, has mistakenly sprayed his armpits with hairspray rather than deodorant, and the post-game interviews had to be cut short while he tried to cope with the sting.
Both times after the losses, guarantee you.
He acknowledges the mistakes with good humor. He's a fun guy to be around, Bobby Cox.
Well, with the team, and I'm not saying it's a tailspin, but being a little sluggish, I'm not saying he's testy, but he knows, and he's on the verge, I think, of trying to shake this team up a little bit.
0-2 to Witt, who struck out his first time. And he was able to hold up.
Hey, right-handed hitters are overmatched so far against Danny Jackson today, and the left-hander with the bat, with that slider, you may as well just sit down at times. The way he's crackling them.
He's allowed the Jays just one hit. Witt goes to the opposite field, gliding over toward the line is Lonnie Smith, and he's got it.
Jackson is all but knocking the bats out of Blue Jays' hands. He has such good stuff today. Getting ahead of the hitters, as Bobby Costas told you a while ago. Chicago 7, Milwaukee 3 in the second. Robin Yount, perhaps, well, maybe this week, to undergo shoulder surgery to wrap up his season, trying to get him back at shortstop next year.
Both halves of the Keystone combination today for the Blue Jays hail from San Pedro de Macorís in the Dominican Republic. Tony Fernandez and Manny Lee. Of course, never a Saturday goes by without Tony Kubek paying tribute to all the baseball talent that has come from that country. So I'm guessing that you were delighted to see Dave Nightingale's article about the Dominican Republic, the baseball factory, in the Sporting News this week. Frank White throws Manny Lee out.
I haven't seen it yet, but I will. And of course, the Latin American head of scouting is Epi Guerrero, who has spent so much time in the Dominican Republic. They tell stories about Epi and Wayne Morgan, one of the scouts for the Blue Jays, riding donkeys into the mountains to try and round up the father of an outstanding prospect.
Fernandez 0 for 2, takes a strike. Why is it that such a high percentage of Dominican-born major leaguers are middle infielders?
I give up. Why?
It wasn't a quiz. I was honestly asking a question.
Soto and Andujar in the middle of the diamond, but they're not too bad of pitchers, are they? Pena behind the plate.
Frank White, the six-time Gold Glover, throws Fernandez out, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. George Brett will lead it off in the top half of the seventh. As you speculate about the batting race involving Boggs, Brett, and possibly Ricky Henderson, here's an interesting note. In his relatively brief career, Wade Boggs is a .351 September hitter. George Brett, .307 lifetime in the season's last month. And Ricky Henderson, who has never hit for the kind of average he's hitting for this year up until 1985, is a .287 lifetime hitter in September. Brett started the day a point behind Boggs in the American League batting race. They faced each other head-to-head this past week at Fenway. On Tuesday, Brett had 4 hits. Boggs turned around and went 4 for 5 on Wednesday to keep pace.
So you have 25 intentional walks now. Ted Williams with the record, no intentional walk situation here, but boy, they pitch around him, and that makes it, with McRae's bat getting hot, makes it more difficult to do.
Ball 1 to him. Ted Williams holds the American League record for intentional walks in a season. The Major League record, 45 intentional walks issued to Willie McCovey in his MVP season with the Giants, 1969. Brett's 0 for 1 with a sacrifice fly. Reaches for 1 and grounds weakly to Manny Lee. That's the first out in the 7th.
Saw at least Doyle Alexander's philosophy a couple of at-bats in this ball game, and is make George Brett supply his own power. He's gotten him out twice. Last 2 times off the changeup.
Only one of the Royals' 3 hits was stroked solidly. That was a double to open the second by Dane Orge. The other 2, an infield hit by Willie Wilson and a bloop to left by Wilson to start the game.
Now that wild pitch with no balls, 2 strikes on Lonnie Smith gets bigger and bigger back in the first inning. Wilson was on second after he stole a base. Mike Jones, the left-hander, quite a comeback story for him, isn't it, after the accident? Thought he'd never pitch again. Hauser with just 9 pitchers. Joe Beckwith, who was such a great setup man for Quisenberry last year, has been struggling.
Has he ever? something like 18 earned runs allowed in his last 11 innings. He's been throwing batting practice during the game.
He's lost that curveball, Beckwith.
The 1-1 pitch to McRae. 1-2 now.
When you look at the makeup of the Blue Jays ball club and Kansas City, they are 1-2 in team ERA in the American League. Toronto sits on top of the league in that regard. If Toronto would lose it, it would be because their pitching staff would become unraveled, I feel. Their speed will keep them in a lot of ball games offensively and defensively. Dave Stieb has been having a little bit of elbow problems the last 4 starts. Clancy some shoulder problems. And I think they've got to get Bill Caudle straightened out sooner or later.
Oh, Alexander came sidearm and took something off. And McRae nearly screwed himself into the ground swinging at that one. 5th strikeout for Doyle Alexander.
It's an unusual pitch in that you don't see many pitchers who throw from the 3/4 spot drop down like he does and then throw a changeup. He also throws the fastball sometimes harder from the side than he does over the top. As a hitter, that split second you don't pick up the ball, looking for the ball up over the top gives him that advantage. And you still got to be able to throw it for strikes, and that's what Alexander can do, changing his delivery.
You mentioned the things that might possibly do the Blue Jays in the American League East race. Is pressure for a young team a factor, or is that something that's just built up in the media?
Oh, I think they're going to watch the scoreboard. And, you know, Buck Martinez, who's disabled, might have helped him a little bit, not only with his catching skills, but he's been through those kinds of pennant races before. Alexander's a veteran. Stieb, he's not going to hurt him. Jimmy Key, their left-handed starter, lost yesterday. Sometimes that can be overrated, though. I really think that, you know, once you've played almost 162 games, how much pressure is there?
2-1 pitch to Orge. And this one is well hit to right field. Back goes Barfield, and on the track, he's got it. So Orge has solved Alexander about as well as any Kansas City hitter. And here's another edition of 7th inning stretch.
Gatorade Thirst Quencher presents the 7th inning stretch. Gatorade is thirst aid for that deep down body thirst.
In Boston, a 25-year-old pitcher says can do, and very often does when it's time to take the hill. Name him if you can. The Boston Red Sox have gotten a lift this year from a rambunctious right-hander by the name of Dennis Oil Can Boyd. Even though his motion isn't always fluid, Oil Can beats down the opposition with a dazzling array of pitches and non-stop enthusiasm. For Boyd, a strikeout is just another can of corn. Not surprisingly, Oil Can be found among the league leaders in strikeouts and innings pitched. A third-year man from Mississippi, irrepressible Oil Can Boyd is a beautiful original.
Only a ground single up the middle by Cecil Fielder in the 5th inning stands between Danny Jackson and perfection right now. Bottom of the 7th, Mosby, Burrows, and Bell. Jack Morris of the Tigers and Bert Blyleven, now with Minnesota, each have 4 shutouts this year, tops in the American League. Jackson with 3, Britt Burns with 3. The man we featured on 7th inning stretch, Oil Can Boyd, has 3. A ball to Mosby. That's in the American League. John Tudor has half a dozen for the Cardinals in the National League. Cardinals back in front by a game over the Mets, National League East. And the Dodgers, remarkably, now have a gap of 8 in the Western Division. 8 over San Diego, 9 over Cincinnati. 1-1 pitch. 1-2.
It's one of the most overpowering games thus far that I've seen pitched this year by Jackson. So Catskill a couple of weekends ago in Minnesota. Maybe 1 or 2 balls hit hard, but he wasn't striking people out like Danny Jackson is today.
Mosby gets his bat on it and stays alive. McCaskill was doing it with the breaking pitches and the off-speed stuff, giving guys the comfortable 0 for 4 and 0 for 5. Jackson is making people look bad.
This is so much different than the game Charlie Leibrandt pitched yesterday, which was in and out with the ball, up and down, and a lot of great change of speeds. This is just pretty much all the same speed, fastball and slider, and he just bangs into the handle of Mosby's bat. Mosby's had trouble with the ball up and in this year again. He had it a couple of years. They just keep running the ball in up, and they're right and left-handers. So he's gone to a 33-inch bat, trying to be a little quicker with the barrel.
Again, the 1-2 pitch. And that's a base hit to open the last of the 7th. Keep in mind, in a one-run game, Mosby has stolen 28 bases.
One of the few sliders he's thrown that has just hung over the center of the plate. Mosby got those arms out, was able to turn on it.
Another possible reason to consider the stolen base here. Burroughs, a guy you can easily double, so to stay out of the double play, they might want to move Mosby. And Jackson knows that.
Jackson's got a pretty high leg kick and knee kick. First base umpire Rocky Rose going to have to watch that front foot and the knee. If it goes to the outfield side of the rubber, he cannot come to first base.
Threw him a little bit of a change there.
Most sacrifice in the American League belonged to Gene Mauch of the California Angels.
Of course, you wouldn't have Burroughs sacrificing anyway, but as you can see by that stat, it's a strategy Cox seldom uses in any circumstance. 1-1.
George Brett down at third base is right on the line. He's going to try and prevent any ball from sneaking down in the left field corner for extra bases.
John Wathan is thrown out. 8 of 17 would-be base stealers. Excellent percentage. Not going. Well hit. And Smith will play very deeply. It bounces over his head. It'll tie the game. Mosby will score easily. Burroughs is on his way to third, and he'll be there.
Pitch runner immediately goes in for Burroughs, Lewis Thornton. And as Costas mentioned to you earlier, when this turf heats up, this plastic, it's a little warmer in day baseball. It becomes very, very lively, and Lonnie Smith, who's played most of his career on turf, overcharges the ball. Burroughs has a triple.
And it is ruled a triple. The interesting thing about that play was Smith had Burroughs played so deeply that he had no chance to catch the ball. So he was in good position to encircle it and hold it to a single, especially the way Burroughs runs. Instead, he got too close to it, and Lonnie Smith, who has turned many a ball into an adventure during the course of his career, may have made the pivotal mistake in this ball game.
Most outfielders who come into this ballpark, visiting teams, say it's the worst park in the league to play in for an outfielder. Nighttime, these long banks of lights, you lose balls into left center and right center. Can't pick the ball off the backstop on a bright sunny day like this because of the screen and the fans. And now the turf adds to Lonnie Smith's woes. The infield has come in. Concepcion is short about halfway.
The ball game tied at 1 apiece. There's the pinch runner Thornton for Burroughs. Inside 2-0. Bell, as we noted earlier, has gone a week and a half without an RBI. If he could get one here, the Blue Jays would have the lead. Out of play. Martin at third, nobody out. Bottom of the 7th. 2-2. Wathan got hit with the backswing on that one. Got him off the left arm.
See where Motley is sneaked into right field now for Kansas City.
That's through. In between Concepcion and Brett.
You bring that infield in on a turf, and it gets that top spin. Billy Smith, the first base coach, and Bell turns on the crowd. Three Blue Jays players this season got their first major league hit this year. Manny Lee, Lewis Thornton, who just scored, and Ron Shepard, since sent down to Syracuse.
What about Cecil Fielder?
That's 4.
There's the new right fielder, Darryl Motley. Dane Orge made the last out in the top of the 7th, flying to deep right. So Motley is in, the better defensive player.
Well, George Bell has been having a little knee tenderness over the last week or so. He still has stolen 14 bases. Pretty good team speed on this ball club. You can't just focus in on Damaso Garcia or Lloyd Mosby. Barfield stolen 16, Bell 14, Fernandez 10.
By knocking in the go-ahead run, Bell hikes his personal RBI total to 72. A called strike.
Blue Jays lead the American League in steals. Steve Farr, the right-hander, gets the throwing now for Dick Hauser.
Brought him up a while ago and farmed Mike Lacasse out to Omaha. Breaking ball is high, 1-1. Of Jesse Barfield. What a play Motley makes. He just kind of swipes at the ball and in between hop and somehow knocks it down. But that ball was a running fastball. Looked like it was low and away. Barfield, who's probably the strongest player on this Blue Jays team, just rifles it in the right field corner. Out comes Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach. Let's pause briefly for station identification on the NBC television network. The Blue Jays have taken wing here in the bottom of the 7th. Jackson had allowed them but one hit coming into this inning. 4 consecutive base hits now. A single by Mosby, a triple by Burrows as Smith misplayed the bounce. The go-ahead run on a single through the left side of the infield by Bell, and now an opposite field double from Barfield.
Dick Hauser knows that Bobby Cox has some pretty good left-handed bats on the bench. Start right off with Al Oliver, Mullix, Upshaw. I'd rather have the left-hander pitch the fielder, the right-hander, and bring the infield in.
Jackson from the set. Brett's got it on a short hop, a tough play, checks the runner and throws Fielder out. It's a more difficult play than it might appear.
Well, it's more like an in-between hop, and it becomes even tougher when it comes from the turf, and then a hop hits the dirt, when you don't get the consistency of the hop as you do when it bounces from turf and stays on it. Witt was just trying to get in front of it, knock it down. If nothing else, he feels up cleanly.
Number 16, Mark Ford.
Now first base is open, and Witt, a left-handed batter, is on deck. And the intentional walk will be issued to Garth Iorg. Witt is a guy who you can double if he hits it on the ground. He's struck out once in 2 appearances against Jackson and appeared overmatched. And if they get by him, there's Manny Lee behind him, although Cox might pinch hit for Lee. So it all makes sense for Dick Howser here.
Damaso Garcia starts out of the dugout, and I believe he is going to pinch hit for Witt. Gary Allenson, the only other catcher, sitting on the bench, although Garth Iorg could in a pinch. Damaso Garcia, surprisingly, has been an outstanding RBI man this year. Situation early in the ballgame yesterday. He started the game, then left because of his knee, but he bases loaded early in the game. He hit into a double play. Not running quite as well as he normally does. Blue Jays finally starting to get some recognition around this continent, not only Canada. They had 4 members on the All-Star team in Minnesota this year. That helps. In the pennant race, that'll help more.
So Garcia bats for Witt. And Howser sticks with Jackson.
Brett and Balboni stay tight at the corners. The middle infielders move back to double play depth. He is a fastball, first ball hitter. It's hard to throw a pitch near the strike zone that Damaso Garcia doesn't swing at.
Well, he didn't throw that one anywhere near the strike zone. If Jackson can get out of this, it's still a close game. But a base hit could break it open. 2-1 Toronto right now, bottom of the 7th.
Wilson playing very, very shallow in center field toward right center, as you see.
That will be foul. A ball and 2 strikes to Damaso Garcia. Bases loaded, 1 out. 2 runs already home in the inning for Toronto. As Tony told you, they're in at the corners. Brett actually about a step behind the third base bag. Double play depth in the middle, inside and low. Two. Oh, he went after a bad pitch. The count would have been full. And instead, Garcia goes after an awful pitch and becomes a strikeout victim. The 8th for Danny Jackson.
He had thrown him a couple of sliders that he's been throwing so hard that are breaking in toward the right-hander, and this one he just runs away out of the strike zone. Saying he's lost the edge. He's still got the good fastball, but didn't appear to Garcia anyway, and several of the other hitters in the city. The slider wasn't quite as hard. And it's upstairs. There's another one. Slider pitch it is much more tension and pressure that it creates on that elbow. You do get tired. You lose that sometimes before you will the fastball.
So Jackson close to minimizing the damage here. He's got Manny Lee, who came in batting 143 and is 0 for 2 this afternoon. 1-0 pitch. 1-1. Evidently, Cox doesn't want Garcia to play the field at all, because if he did, he could pinch hit for Lee here and let Damaso stay in the game at second base.
Dick Howser, of course, wants to keep those left-handed bats sitting on the bench. Mullins, Oliver, and Upshaw. The only right-hander that Bobby Cox has left is Gary Allenson. called up from Syracuse, and he isn't noted to be a hitter.
Tap foul.
Manny Lee has tremendous ability. He's a switch hitter. He's outstanding running speed. He's played so much in the Dominican Republic that he has tremendous baseball instincts. The question that's been asked is, can you win a pennant with these young players on the roster for the entire season? So far, it's worked.
And Lee hangs in there against Danny Jackson.
Imagine Manny Lee down in the Dominican has probably been playing against some major league and high minor league professionals since he's 15 or 16 years old. The Latin player develops so quickly and jump right in. Never played above A ball before this year.
Jackson working very deliberately as Wathan gives him his sign. And Lee goes after one, becomes the 9th man to strike out against Jackson. And it could have been a whole lot worse for Kansas City. 2-1 Blue Jays after 7. Witt went out for a pinch hitter, so Gary Allenson, the former Red Sox reserve, is now the catcher for Toronto. Added to their roster when Buck Martinez broke his leg. Willie Upshaw goes in for Cecil Fielder at first base. Upshaw will hit in Fielder's spot, which is the 6th slot in the order, and Allenson will occupy the 8th spot, vacated by Witt.
Alexander looking for his 3rd complete ball game of the year. Toronto staff has just 11 on the year. Bobby Cox has used his bullpen over 220 times so far this season. Alexander's a pretty good finisher if you let him know.
Ball 1 to Frank White, who has already equaled his career high of 17 homers. He had 17 last year.
See Orge guarding the line just behind the third base bag.
One and one.
Tom Hankey, the right-hander, he has been sensational. The left-hander is Gary Lavelle.
Even though Lavelle and Caudle have at times been disappointing, a shot, and it's off Fernandez's glove. That ball had a little rise to it. Tony thought he was going to come up with it, and it skipped off the top of his glove. Rule it a base hit.
A highly catchable ball, though. He didn't really appear to me like he extended that hand completely. Don't know if there was some problem with the white shirted background or not. I think Tony thought he had it.
Started to say, even though Lavelle and Caudle haven't performed up to expectations, the Blue Jay bullpen is just so much better than it has been the last couple of years. In 1984, they led the American League in bullpen losses. Galboni takes a ball. Every time Cox called the bullpen, 83 and 84, it seemed like he got a wrong number.
Jim Acker was so brilliant for the first 3 months of the season. Bobby Cox has said they couldn't have been in first place without him. Dennis Lamp has just been blowing people away and getting a lot of double plays.
Off-speed pitch. Galboni didn't bite. The Cox really has depth in that bullpen now. If Caudle and Lavelle don't do it, he's got Henke, who hasn't allowed an earned run since coming up from Syracuse. Acker, as you mentioned, did the job. Lamp has won 7 times in a row when involved in a decision.
Tom Filer, who came up from Syracuse, is 5-0 as a starter when they sent Luis Leal down. Nice block by Allenson.
They were so desperate a year ago that Cox considered converting Steve into a reliever, but Steve didn't like the idea, and neither did Pat Gillick.
I think that was more talk than anything else. There's Steve right there in the middle of your screen. Just behind Steve, the left of your screen, is Jim Clancy, who had a cortisone shot in that shoulder a couple of days ago. Good changeup. Even when Clancy, or rather Alexander, gets the changeup high in the strike zone, the change of speed fools you. The Yankees are now leading Boston 3-1 in the 5th. There's a 6-game difference between the Yankees and the Blue Jays.
Foul tip. Allenson held it, and the count is full to Balboni, who had been given the green light on 3-0 the pitch before and swung and missed. You saw it, 4 games in mid-September at Yankee Stadium, and then 3 here in early October to close the regular season. The payoff pitch is popped back, and it looks like it's out of play. It is. At his present pace, Steve Balboni would strike out 171 times this year. The American League whiff mark is 175, shared by Dave Nicholson with the 63 White Sox and Gorman Thomas with the 79 Brewers. The difference is Thomas played a full season. Nicholson was so proficient at striking out, it took him only 126 games. The 3-2. Hop up, and this one might be playable. In foul ground, Upshaw. Willie's got it.
Came back from being 3 balls, no strikes on Balboni. Kansas City Royals bullpen in the background goes into action. Upshaw's got a lot of way to go. Looking into that sun, doesn't have glasses on, a little breeze. They have a pinch hitter now for Wathan.
Looks like George Orta,
who had shared the DH job up until a few weeks ago with Hal McRae. Orta, former Blue Jay. Former Chicago White Sox player. Spent a year with the Dodgers where he didn't get many at-bats.
Also had a brief stint with the Indians, as I recall. Always been a pretty good hitter.
Dan Quisenberry. Does that style need any identification? Started the season struggling. Now he is leading the American League in saves. He's gone through those stretches this year. He's gotten the ball up in the strike zone. Gotten hurt a little bit.
Willie Hernandez, despite those 24 saves, has been hit hard lately. A couple of nights ago, Andre Thornton beat him with a 9th inning homer for the Indians. All right, here's Orta. 1 out and 1 on. Top of the 8th, 2-1 Toronto. Orta looking down at Mike Ferraro in the third base coaching box. Frank White is the runner at first, not going. Line drive, base hit. White will have to stop at second. 2 on, 1 out.
You don't take too many liberties off Jesse Barfield's throwing arm. One time the standard among outfielders in the American League in right field was Evans with Boston. Perhaps now it's Barfield.
So the tying run is in scoring position, and it's possible the Blue Jays will look back and lament the last 2 hitters in the bottom of the 7th. Garcia, batting for Witt, swung at a bad pitch and struck out, and then Manny Lee fanned on one over his head.
And Concepcion, hitting out of the 9th slot, will not bat. Dave Leeper, the left-handed hitter, will come on to hit. Leeper, with just 13 at-bats, does not yet have a base hit, so 1 base on balls on the board so far this season.
Now here comes Cox. He has the left-hander Lavelle and the right-hander Henke in the bullpen.
Now, Bobby Cox knows that if he does take Alexander out and bring the left-hander to pitch to Leeper, Hauser, whose bench may not be as strong as Cox's, he still has Motley down there.
Motley's in the game.
Oops, sorry, he's on right field. All right. Got Lynn Jones. Jim Sundberg from the right side. Pryor.
So Cox sticks with Alexander, and Leeper bats for Concepcion. Leadoff man Willie Wilson on deck. Decent speed on the bases right now for Kansas City. White at second, Orta at first. Leeper goes to the opposite field. Bell goes back a couple of steps and takes it. Leeper is now 0 for 20 lifetime. He was 0 for 6 last year in a brief tryout and hitless in 14 trips this season. Now it'll be Willie Wilson. 2 for 3, robbed of the hit his last time on a good fielding play by Cecil Fielder at first base.
It's interesting with Ferraro coaching at third base for Kansas City. This is one of the most difficult parks because of the short dimensions and bouncy, quick turf to score a man on a base hit to the outfield. With Wilson up, they've moved in considerably. So any base hit or ground ball that sneaks through, if it should happen, it could really be close at home plate.
And as you've mentioned, all three of the Blue Jay outfielders have strong arms. Bell in left, Mosby in center, Barfield in right. Who's the strongest of the three?
Barfield. Mosby right behind him by George Bell, who's got, Bell's played some right field last season. He's got a better than an average left fielder's arm. And they all charge the ball very well. Of course, on the turf, the ball will get to them that much more quickly, and the throw will be truer.
2-0 to Willie Wilson. Lonnie Smith in the on-deck circle. 2-1 now.
Frank White down at second base. As we look at Lonnie Smith on deck, Frank White does have the luxury that as soon as he sees Wilson get a piece of the ball, he doesn't have to worry about the ball being in the air on the ground. He can get an excellent walking lead and jump with 2 outs.
That's low, 3-1.
I believe Alexander thought he had that pitch. It's one thing that happens when you change catchers in midstream. Sometimes a little different catching technique. Allenson replacing Witt can mess up a pitcher's timing and rhythm.
Full count. And another edge now to Kansas City as the runners will be going.
Steve Alexander just decoys the throw to second base now, even though he doesn't throw, just to maybe take one step away from Frank White. He'll do that on occasion.
And this one sneaks through. It's going to tie the game. White is being waved home. Bell's throw is over the head of Allenson. Alexander backed it up. The other runners don't advance. Willie Wilson is 3 for 4.
And the luxury of 3 and 2, 2 outs, being on the move, even though that George Bell got on that ball in a hurry. Frank White with an outstanding jump. He just cut the bag well at third and kept on coming. Bell knows he doesn't want to hit a cutoff man in this situation. Throws all the way on the fly, so there's no lack of loss of speed on the ball in case it bounced. 3 and 2, 2 outs made the difference.
Now Lonnie Smith with a chance to atone for his misplay in the bottom of the 7th, as he got too close to what should have been a single by Burroughs and let it become a triple. Breaks the bat in half, but it might drop in. Mosby coming on and couldn't hold it. The Royals have the lead, and Willie Wilson's going to try to score. He is safe at the plate as Allenson couldn't hold the ball.
What a hard slide by Wilson. He is still down. To Wilson, I don't know if any other player in this league would have scored on that. Mosby almost trapped the ball. The ball curled under his glove. Mickey Cobb, the trainer, out. Allison got a tough hop, a tough hop to hang on to the ball, and the ball and Wilson arrive at almost the same time. Not hit hard, it shatters the bat. Mosby may have taken one step back or frozen in his tracks with the bat background. He does pounce on the ball in a hurry. There's Barnett right on the play, and Wilson with that great speed. What a sensational attempt by both Mosby, Allenson, if not for the speed of Willie Wilson. One of the few people in the game who could have made this. You can tack Vince Coleman and Willie McGee's name on that, and there the ball lies.
Kenny Kaiser, watching the play, he knew that Wilson was out. If Allenson held the ball, he was waiting to see if Gary was able to hold it. When he saw the ball pop free, then came the safe sign. Here comes Henke, but the Royals have reclaimed the lead.
We'll show you the tail end of that play again. Willie Wilson breaking off first base. Mosby almost made a catch, knocked the ball down on the tough turf, and only but Wilson's speed. George Brett is calling the play. He already sees the ball lying on the ground. Ken Kaiser waits till the last split second to make the call. Now with Henke on, Alexander out. He pitched a marvelous game, folks. Henke is going to intentionally walk George Brett. They did the same thing yesterday with first base open. Henke's been just outstanding and unscored upon. This is his 7th appearance, but the first 6, he's got 3 saves and 3 wins. So the fastball about 95 miles an hour. He's got a split-fingered fastball now, occasional slider. And when he drops down to the side to right-handers, he is just awful to hit against.
It's an interesting thing. Now that the strike is over and there's a new basic agreement between the owners and the players, there will be no more compensation pool for teams that lose free agents to select from. And yet in this season, compensation selections might have an impact on the pennant race. Donnie Moore certainly has with the Angels. California got him when he was left unprotected by Atlanta as compensation for losing Fred Lynn as a free agent to Baltimore. And Henke was the compensation for the Blue Jays when Cliff Johnson signed as a free agent with Texas. Foul back by McRae.
They have not yet confirmed Henke the official stopper of this Blue Jays team, but the time is about here with Bill Caudle struggling. Lamp and Miller long relief. Acker long relief now. Musselman a spot starter. There's Lonnie Smith. George Brett with the intentional walk. Laval, pretty much he can finish a game for you, but Gary Laval's come in to get certain left-handed hitters out and occasionally finished.
Comes down sidearm and he hits it right back to it. Henke will get them out of the inning, but not before Kansas City scores 3 times to reclaim the lead at 4-2 as we go to the bottom of the 8th. Willie Wilson, who was shaken up in that collision at the plate where he scored on what was officially ruled a single by Lonnie Smith, scored from first. Willie remains in the game, plays center field. Lonnie Smith is now out of the game, and the new left fielder is Lynn Jones for defensive purposes. Concepcion was pinch hit for in the top half of the 8th. Buddy Biancalana is the new shortstop. Wathan was also hit for. Jim Sundberg is the new catcher. And to protect the lead out of the bullpen, the Quiz.
Quisenberry, who's had probably as many downs this season as he had in his entire career, but in the last 13 opportunities he's had for saves, he's been successful 12 times. You'd better hit your way on off this guy. He didn't walk in. Keeps the ball right down at the knees.
Fernandez, the switch hitter, turns around to bat left-handed and takes ball 1.
Danny Jackson was just awesome at times today, wasn't he? 2 great ball games pitched by Alexander and Jackson.
Show you the kind of game it is. Lonnie Smith hit 2 of what ball players call atom balls. Balls hit sharply but directly at a fielder. His first 2 times up. Couldn't hit it any harder. Breaks his bat in half and gets what may be the decisive hit. A bloop single to center. Motley comes within inches of catching it. Instead of it still being a tie game, 2 runs come in, and it's 4-2 Kansas City. 3-0 the count to Fernandez.
Think about it, in the 7th inning, the Blue Jays looked like they might have a 4 or 5 run inning. They left the bases loaded. They've been doing that a lot. They did it last night. The kind of inning that they could just blow the game wide open.
Just to get the right-handed hitting Jackie Gutierrez out of there the other day at Fenway, Fernandez bluffs a bunt and takes a strike, which runs the count out full. Quisenberry is so tough on right-handed batters, as you saw from that last graphic. Just to get a left-handed batter in against him, John McNamara pinch hit the pitcher, Tim Lawler, a good hitter, for Jackie Gutierrez the other day at Fenway. Right on the nose, and Wilson gets there.
What more can he do, huh? The background didn't fool him a bit. Crushed right on the nose by Tony Fernandez, and before the ball left Fernandez's bat, he already had a step. There's so many outfielders on the turf. Fear coming in for a shoestring catch. That wasn't quite a shoestring catch, but they're afraid the ball will bounce over their head. Wilson and Kirby Puckett from Minnesota play very aggressive center fields.
So Quisenberry falls behind 3-0 to Fernandez. Comes back and retires him on the liner to center. Mosby drops the bunt. Quisenberry pounces on it and gets him.
It's one of the areas that is not the strong suit of a Dan Quisenberry. He's had trouble fielding balls at times, and Mosby really didn't get the ball where he wanted to. I think he wanted to pull it a little bit farther to make Whitefield or Balboni and then beat Quisenberry to first base.
Now Al Oliver will bat for Lou Thornton, who officially became the designated hitter. when he ran for Jeff Burroughs after Burroughs' triple in the 7th.
Oliver with 2,720 hits. He gets 1 hit, and he ties Lou Gehrig on the all-time list.
Won a batting title as recently as 1982 when he hit .331 at Montreal. This is his 18th Major League season.
Surprising thing since he's come here, and of course his little ballpark has helped a little bit, but he won a string of almost 3 years without a home run. There it is, 175 games. He's got 5 in a Blue Jays uniform. What a great changeup. Is that a knuckleball? Quisenberry will throw some knuckleballs down there, also a little forkball.
Oliver swung over that by about 2 feet.
Now Oliver gets tough, one of the best 2-strike hitters in the game.
Just slaps at it. Brett backs up and guns him out. So Quisenberry comes in and retires the side in order in the bottom of the 8th. Kansas City 4, Toronto 2. Big week here in Toronto, the week of the Canadian National Exhibition. Out on the fairgrounds, just beyond the outfield fences, carnival going on. It's a citywide celebration. A lot of these people will spill out into the surrounding area and take part in the fair after this ball game is over. Crowd of about 40,000 or so here to watch this one. Darryl Motley swings and misses at Henke's first offering in the top of the 9th. It's Motley's first at-bat since he replaced Dane Orge in right field. Blows another fastball by him, 0-2.
Not only seen good pitching by Alexander, Quisenberry the last inning, 3 up, 3 down, Alexander, but pretty good managing. Each manager now has just one position player left. Mullicks for Bobby Cox. Let's see, we've got Pryor. Another one left for Dick Hauser.
Still 0-2. One of the key moves in the game when Hauser, trailing 2-1 at that time, elected to walk Garth Orge intentionally to load the bases in the bottom of the 7th. And then Danny Jackson fanned Damaso Garcia batting for Ernie Witt and Manny Lee back-to-back to get out of the inning.
They needed a sacrifice fly from Garcia. Might have been a difference.
Sidearm and outside. It'll be tough to decide between Willie Wilson, who offensively has dominated this game with his legs, and Danny Jackson, who pitched so well and stands now to be the winning pitcher for an MVP. Henke strikes Motley out, and Motley makes a right turn, shaking his head.
Al Widmar, as we look at part of the exhibition grounds. I think they run all kinds of promotions up here, give discount rates on tickets. Ball games are being played. Fair is open. Al Widmar, the pitching coach, shortened the delivery in spring training of Tom Henke. Made him a little more compact. There's the changeup. Forkball. There he is. You mentioned it, the original Brownie, or one of the Brownies. Years ago, he challenged free agency when he came up from the minor leagues, and because Commissioner Happy Chandler said, "Pal, we'll take care of it in the back room. Don't challenge the reserve clause." Kurt Flood.
When you think about it in retrospect, it's amazing the owners were able to hold on to that as long as they did.
Yep.
It seems so obvious what an injustice it was now, in hindsight. 0-2 the count to White. And he fans him on 3 pitches, so Henke taking this opportunity to show a national television audience what he can do.
His statistics, Henke's at Syracuse, were just awesome. Yankees 3, Boston 1 in the 7th. He throws a lot of fear in the hearts of right-hand hitters. Philadelphia 1, the Cubbies with all 5 starters on the disabled list. In the 2nd inning, they're down by 1 run. It's incredible that that could happen, isn't it? To the Cubs pitching staff, I mean. Sutcliffe, Eckersley, Trout, Ruthven, just on and on.
You still have to figure, as well as the Mets and Cardinals have played, a healthy Chicago team, and remember they lost Dernier, Sandberg, and Matthews for significant stretches too. A healthy Chicago team would still have been in contention. Henke a pitch away from striking out the side. What a steal he has turned out to be. Could never establish himself with the Rangers. As he put it, I was up and down more often than a pump handle.
Why didn't they go on the...
He's got a home now in Toronto. Balboni hangs in.
It's almost a victory when you can foul a ball off a guy like this one, the way he's throwing. See if he drops down from the side. What he does, it's the expression, Katie bar the door. Who used that? Some farmer, probably.
Some old guy.
Yeah.
Some old guy. I don't know. Here comes the 0-2 again. He doesn't drop down, comes over the top and misses.
He's refined that fork ball to give him the off-speed pitch, with occasional slider.
Up high, 2-2. Balboni gets a piece of it, but Manny Lee drifts back and makes the catch. 1-2-3 for Henke in the top of the ninth. Now, since coming to the major leagues, he's retired 38 of the 46 batters he's faced. And Quisenberry has been the guilty party in relinquishing those leads more often than you might suspect. But most of the times Quisenberry has failed came earlier in the season. He's in a much better groove now. The key for Quisenberry is not to overthrow. When he throws that Peggy Lee fastball of his, is that all there is, 77, 78 miles an hour, he can be just about unhittable. But if he gets up into the low 80s and overthrows, that's when batters begin to time him.
He gets a lot of hitters out with pitches out of the strike zone. He's the ball with that sinking action from down under. A lot of pitches just like that hitters will swing at. George Bell is an outstanding low ball hitter. Quisenberry will challenge Bell with to his strength, low. Many times a low ball hitter will swing at bad low balls in this situation.
He falls behind Bell, 2-0. Looking for his 28th save. Bottom of the ninth, 4-2 Kansas City. Strike call from plate umpire Ken Kaiser. I want to mention that Ken Kaiser, as always, will be hosting his charity dinner in Rochester, New York in mid-November, and all the proceeds go to a fund to help abused children. A ground ball to short. Bianca Lana, his first chance. And Balboni comes off the bag, but he made the tag. Rocky Rowe with the call at first base.
Balboni will surprise you with his agility. He just does right here. He's got good hands. And they tell you for a guy that weighs about 240 and resembles a condominium that he's pretty agile, which you just saw, and covers some ground.
Barfield steps in, 1 for 3. Had a double his last time. Takes a strike. So that big man behind the plate, Ken Kaiser, has a big heart. A number of big league ball players will be in attendance at that dinner of his in November. 1-1. This doesn't mean we're giving up on Toronto's chances, folks. We've just got to do this to clean house. The executive producer of NBC Sports is Mike Weissman. Coordinating producer for NBC's baseball, Harry Coyle. 2 balls and a strike. The telecast of today's game in Toronto, produced by Ken Edmondson, directed by Dick Klein, pregame produced by Dave Hoffman, pregame directed by Mary Buta-Lanuccio, technical directors Wayne Taylor and Sal Nagita. The 2-1 from Quisenberry is high, 3-1.
You saw that graphic Jeff Simon, statistician Steve Horn, put up a while ago on just 13 bases on balls given up by Quisenberry, some intentional. You look at his career records before this year in 635 innings pitched, he's only walked 84. Learn to throw strikes, kid. You'll be right here.
3-2. If time allows, and if this game should end here in the bottom of the ninth, and it's an out away from happening as Barfield fans, we'll switch you to Yankee Stadium. We'll join Vin Scully and Joe Garagiola for the conclusion of the Yankee-Red Sox game. By the way, at last report, and I'm sure Boggs has had at least 1 and maybe 2 subsequent at-bats, but Wade Boggs was 1 for his first 2, and that put him at 358. On the day, George Brett is 0 for 2 officially, has an intentional walk and a sacrifice fly, so he'll probably lose a couple of points, down to 354. Came in at 356, a point behind Boggs. This week's NBC Light Beer from Miller Player of the Game, we don't want to decide, we'll split it between Willie Wilson and Danny Jackson. Light Beer from Miller happy to present a check for $1,000 in their names to help fight multiple sclerosis. Upshaw bounces to Balboni. It stays fair. He steps on the bag, and that'll do it. Quisenberry gets the save. Jackson gets the win. Willie Wilson went 3 for 4 on the day, scored the first run on a stolen base after a single, moved to third on a wild pitch, scored on a sacrifice fly, and then came home with the final run of the game, scoring from first base on a close play on a bloop single to center field by Lonnie Smith. So they each deserved it.
Great starting pitching by Alexander and Jackson. Good relief by Quisenberry. Blue Jays didn't take advantage of the bases loaded. 2 strikeouts to finish off an inning in the 7th.
For the moment, at least, Kansas City within 2 of the Angels. Let's go to New York.